All right. We're going to end the topics about electromagnetism today, and we're going to move on to the new chapter. And we're going to start to look at the light. Light is very interesting, amazing stuff that you see light, you see color, you see everything like all the time, and there's a lot of things that we kind of give you an idea how we see things and why do we see things this way, and what are the most important property about the light, and you're going to see a lot of interesting topic that we want to cover in this coming chapters. So I will try to finish two chapters. One is I'm going to finish up the electromagnetic today with a couple of demonstration and the video. So as you can see from my screen right now, um, that we have an animation I'm going to show you. Okay, you guys can hear me, right? I hope I've been talking for a while. Uh, anyone?
I can hear you.
Thank
Yeah,
you
we
very
can hear you.
much. Nice. Oh, I really miss the day that we can actually have a face-to-face class. Okay, the first thing I wanted to talk about in the chapter 5 is what is the electromagnetic induction. So to understand this, there's a guy called Faraday. He proposed an hypothesis, and this hypothesis actually become a law because we can actually observe what he described. And this animation, when I start to run, then we will show you what is the Faraday's law. And after I show you the animation, then we will explain what that tells us. Over here, you can see there is like a circuit, okay? We have a voltage, positive and negative, that we connect to a light bulb. And this dial on the left hand side is simply just chose to show you if there is a current going through the wire, then this needle is going to turn. Okay, and it depends on how the current is flowing. Is it flowing to the right or flowing to the left? This needle is going to show you. Okay, right now there's nothing happening because I didn't connect this one to a battery. If I connect to a battery, then there's supposed to have some current. I didn't plug it into the outlets, so there's nothing. It's simply just a light bulb connect with a wire. So it's a closed loop. And this one we connect to a coil. So these are like a metal coil, like the copper coil. And so this is a conductor. That means the electron can also move along the coil. Okay. Now, nothing happened yet. So I also have something over here. You can see this is a magnet. How can you tell this is a magnet? Well, because it has a north and south. We talk about magnetism. So magnetism is about a magnet, and magnet has two poles, north and south pole. Now, what happened is you're going to see, I'm going to start to move this magnet around and watch carefully about what is the response on this needle. Okay, do you see the change?
Yes.
Okay, and what does that tell us? Does that mean the north of the magnets go into a coil, it will make the light bulb lights up, right? If that's so, then that means there is an electricity. Otherwise, the light bulb would not light up, and the needle will not turn as well. And if you look carefully, look at how I move my magnet and how this needle turn. Is it turn to the left or turn to the right? If I drag my magnet outwards, needle turns to the right. If I go in, it turns to the left. But if I didn't move the magnet, even though the magnet is inside of this coil, nothing changed. There's no current because the light bulb doesn't light on. I have to keep on turning, otherwise the light bulb will not turn on, right? And if I move slow, and it will turn on, but it's not as strong if I move faster. I can turn around my magnet as well. It doesn't have to be like a north and south. I can make it south and north. It will do the same thing. Okay, but watch carefully where the needle turns. Previously, when I go in, it will turn to the left. Now it turned to the right because I shifted the north and south pole. Okay, so based on the simulation, and if you, well, I'm not sure that you have this kind of device at home, but if you do, then you can do similar thing. I have one of these like flashlight. There's no battery inside of the flashlight. If you want to use the flashlight, you simply just shake it. You probably will see that kind of device from the store. It's like for emergency use that you don't really need any of the electricity, but they are based on this idea. So what that means is that the electricity is produced based on the movement of the magnets. So it's an induced current. This is an induced current by the motion of the magnets. As a matter of fact, I don't have to move my magnet. I can also move the coil. As long as you have relatively one thing is moving in and out, then you are going to create a current. This is what we call the induced electricity. Okay, and it's a very, very important idea because motor, that we use motor a lot, the motor or generator, they are basically the same thing. The only difference between the motor and generator is motor use the electricity to do some work, while the generator is to use the work to generate electricity. And the way they generate electricity is based on this. So if you got a chance, like a small motor, like a small toy that was broken, that you inside of the motor, and you're gonna see a lot of coil, the brown color coil like this. And that is basically what happened inside of the motor. They simply make the magnet keep on turning, or they make the coil keep on turning because of that, and they will generate electricity. So that is the what we call the Faraday's law. Okay. Any question about this? Another video which will explain in detail, and when I play this one, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but first half of the video is going to show you an animation. By using a battery, you will see when the battery is moving along this coil, and it will create something. Now, in this example I show you is the magnet is moving. Okay, so magnet is moving, create current. I can also use the current to create the magnetic field, because the magnet is going to create a magnetic field, and the field is from the north to south. So I can do the other way around. I'm not using the magnet to create electricity, but I can use the electricity to create a magnetic field. So this video is going to show you. I'm going to play this one, and I'm going to play like halfway of this.
EMF, or electromotive force, refers to the voltage created by a battery or by a changing magnetic field. Counter EMF, also called back EMF, is a related phenomenon that we will illustrate in this animation. Here is a simple circuit featuring a battery, a knife switch, and a light bulb. This circuit also contains a wire coil that serves as an inductor. Inductors store energy in the form of magnetic fields that are generated around them when a current passes through them. They are called inductors because they induce a voltage in their coils when that magnetic field changes. We will see this in a minute. The elements in this animation are not represented to scale, and the action we will show in super slow motion actually takes place in the blink of an eye. But this animation is helpful for illustrating how back EMF works. When we power this circuit, the electrons in the current create a magnetic field around the wire as they move through it, as shown by these blue arrows. If the wire is formed into a coil, like this inductor, the magnetic field lines converge in the center. They gradually build up to a maximum magnetic field that is much stronger than the one around the straight length of the wire. Let's watch this again, but this time we'll pay closer attention to what's happening in the wire conductor. In this parallel circuit, the current can travel either through the inductor or through the light bulb. When the current reaches this junction, it splits and flows to both the inductor and to the light bulb. At first, the current flows much more strongly towards the light bulb. This happens because as the magnetic field in the inductor grows, it induces its own voltage through Faraday's law. This is called electromagnetic induction. So the inductor here is creating a back EMF represented by this yellow arrow. Back EMF always opposes the change that created it. So in this instance, the back EMF is opposing the change created by turning on the circuit. It opposes the current. The result, as you can see, is that the back EMF effectively diverts the current away from the inductor and toward the light bulb. This causes the bulb to light up, but only briefly. Once the magnetic field around the inductor reaches its maximum field, the back EMF fades, and the current now favors the path through the inductor because the bulb creates some resistance to the current. The same phenomenon occurs when the magnetic field is shrinking, which happens when we open the switch and stop current flow from the battery.
So I hope that this video kind of show you what happened if you have electricity go through a coil of a wire and you simply just change the magnetic field. So they are mutually affected. That's why we always put that electromagnetic EM. And you always see these two symbols together, and because they mutually affected. You can change the magnetic field by moving an electron, or you can create a moving of the electron by a magnetic field change. As long as they change, as long as one thing changes, the other one will change as well. So that's a very, very important phenomenon. Inductor, so the inductor is simply the coil of a wire, and that will store electric energy. So if you are interested about the engineering, and this is something that we study, but if you're not, then you simply just need to know the idea about electromagnetic and induction, how they affect with each other. So one thing change, the other one will change as well. The last thing I want to talk about in this chapter is the transformer. So I have a story that I usually talk to my student, which is a rice cooker that I purchased years ago from Japan. So I really love to travel to Japan. It's a very beautiful place. Um, and they create a lot of appliances, really, really beautiful. Let me show you a picture what I'm talking about. So anybody like rice? No?
Yeah.
I think that 5 years ago when I traveled to Kyoto, so I went to the Kyoto, my favorite city in Japan. Um, I went to this big, like the Best Buy store. There's like a super big store with all the appliance, and we're looking at a rice cooker, and then I look at this one here, and you can see the price right now is $300. I don't think you're going to purchase a $300 rice cooker. I believe I spent like $500 US dollars 5 years ago to purchase a rice cooker. And some people must think that you're crazy. You can probably buy a cheap rice cooker for like $20. Um, but this one is really, really good. I mean, if you have ever traveled to Japan, you try their rice. It's so nice. And I talked to my wife this, I say, we eat rice like almost like every day. Why don't we just spend a little bit of money to buy a rice cooker and it'll last very long, right? It won't break easily. It won't, it will last forever. Like, well, it's not going to forever, but and think about the day, the years that you use the rice cooker, and think about the money that you're not really spending a lot of money on the rice cooker. So we decided we got one and from the Japan, and because you have tax free as a foreigner, go there and purchase that. And the nice thing about this is, well, everything is in Japanese. Well, almost part of the character from the Japanese is Chinese, which I'm Chinese, so I can read Chinese characters. I say, well, this kind of I probably can guess what it means, and we just get that. So a lot of things it's really nice. We use this rice cooker every day. But when I just got this back to the States, I plug it in, I look at the menu, I was like ready to have the best rice ever at home, and I turn it on, and I wait for like 2 hours, and nothing happened. I open it up, the rice doesn't cook. I just feel frustrated because I spent like $500 and bring it back all the way from Japan to States, and it doesn't work. And I was like panicked. I thought, well, maybe I bought a defective one, and there's no way I can take the airplane back to Japan and to get replaced. But suddenly I realized when I look at the label on the back of the rice cooker, I understand why. If you ever travel to different city or different country, especially to a different country use different voltage. In the state, we use 120 volt. So all the outlet that you have give you 120 volt. It's an AC circuit. If you go to Asia, like country that I love, Taiwan, that we use 110. Japan use 100 volt. Europe normally use 220 or 240. So different country, unfortunately, using different voltage. What happened, and I realized, wow, states use 120, and this device that we purchased from Japan, they are based on 100 volt. So that's why it doesn't work. And I'm lucky that I didn't burn the rice cooker. I think they probably have some like a protection circuit inside. and it doesn't burn out, and it's still workable. And then the things that I need to do is I need to purchase one device. That device is the transformer. Okay, so um, this one here is the transformer, and what that is if you have something with a higher voltage, if you look at the bottom of this picture, it's like a simplified version of the device on the top. You have 120 volt, but you want to convert to different voltage. You put different number of the coil on the both side of this inductor. So this device over here, this block have more of the coil, and the other side have less number of the coil. Wherever has a less number of the coil, going to have a less of the voltage output. So if you connect this one with 120 volt, and if you want is 100, then that will give you 100 volt. You can also connect 100 to this side and to get 120 volt. So transformer simply is to change the voltage. So all I need is that I need this device that I plug into 120, but then I want 100 to be output so I can plug into my rice cooker. Okay, so that's the idea of the transformer. Okay, and the idea of this one is also based on the electromagnetic induction, because we say if you have an electron moving along the coil, then the more of the coil, the stronger of the field. So less of the coil will make the voltage to be smaller because the less of the electron moving along this one here. So that's the idea that is based on the electromagnetic. All right, any question about this topic? I only have 5 minutes to talk about the light. I don't think I can finish about that, but I'm going to jump to the new topic right now. We still going to have a lot of time to talk about the light. So these are like, okay, those are for the exam. Let me just start from here. The EM wave. So we are going to talk about the light, start by talking about the EM wave and also about the spectrum. Let me just give you these two ideas at first, then we can continue this discussion later. So EM wave, what is the EM wave? How do we have the EM wave? When is the first time we talk about the EM wave? If you think back, when we started talking about the EM wave is when we talk about the heat transfer. We give you an exam problem talking about heat transfer mechanism. I'm glad that most of you did respond to that correctly. So one of the heat transfer is called a radiation. Radiation is the energy transfer from a form of the wave, and that kind of wave is what we call the EM wave. So electromagnetic, they always come in pair, because one thing changes, the other one will change. So if you think about the electron wave, it's like a wave in green color over here. And because it's changing because it changes its amplitude, right? So if the electron field changes its strength, then magnetic field will also start to change. And the red color, if let's make the red color to be the magnetic field, then the magnetic field change accordingly to the change of the electric field. So a wave like this is what we call the electromagnetic wave. And they are generated because of the radiation. Now, when we talk about the temperature, we give you a very special definition. We say temperature was because the electron was moving because they are above the 0 degree Kelvin, which is the absolute zero. Anything has a temperature will have a translational motion, and that's what happened. So if you have a temperature, then you can generate radiation. Normal people like you and me, we generate radiation. We generate EM wave, but we cannot see those kind of EM wave. Those EM wave are what we call the infrared. The color that we can see is what we call the visible light. So let me show you the spectrum. This is one of the thing that we can see is only a very small portion of the light. Now the light actually contains a lot of kind of a wave. If you look at this one here, this the gray colored band over here, this is what we call the spectrum. So the spectrum, meaning the light generated from the sun, actually contains gamma ray, X-ray, the visible light, infrared, microwave, radio, all these things, they are all generated from the sun. But our sense system, our eye can only detect this much of the portion. Actually, they're not proportional. This portion is very, very little small amount of the wave generated by the sun. Okay. And for this, just this small band, it actually contains different color. And the color from the violet to the blue to the green, yellow, red, all these colors are what we call the visible light. Some of the light is what we call the UV light, which is ultraviolet. It's higher than the violet. These light are not visible as well. Okay, the UV light is actually not visible. However, these light are harmful to us. If you use your eye, your naked eye, you look at the sun, you might get blind because you are going to see some of the UV light from the sun directly. So don't look at the sun directly. You have to need to have some protection. The protection is that you can wear a sunglasses. Even if you wear a sunglasses, we still don't recommend that you look at the sun directly. Okay, if you look at that for too long, you're going to damage your eye. Why is that? Well, the reason is if you look at the spectrum, if you go to this direction and you can see they're going to have a gamma ray, they're going to have an X-ray. We know X-ray is harmful. We only take X-ray as necessary because the higher of this one goes to the left, the energy is increasing. Okay, you have a higher energy if you go to the left. And because if you look at the light directly, you're going to get a higher energy light go into your eye. You're going to make your eye damaged. So don't look at the sun directly. So if you go to the right, which is a radio wave, okay, we hear radio all the time. We use microwave all the time. And there's an infrared light as well, which is the some of the light you cannot see. Those are low energy wave. Well, even though they're low, but they still have energy. Like, like microwave, we use microwave all the time. Microwaver cooker can also heat up food. It's a device actually will make the molecule inside of the food to vibrate by using a microwave. But these are like a low energy wave. Okay, so but what is a low energy, high energy is related to the wave? Well, the last thing I want to tell you is if you look at the above, this one here, it represents how do you distinguish a high energy and low energy wave. If you have a fast up and down motion like this portion at here, this one has a high energy. This one has a low energy. How do you know it's high and low? Well, think about if you want to generate these things like that, like a very high frequency up and down with your hand, you're going to do a lot of effort, right? That means you're going to input a lot of energy. So this kind of things is high energy. While on the right hand side, a very slow motion up and down is a low energy. Okay, now the low energy one of the questions we ask you in the exam is, what is the wavelength? Wavelength is the distance from the peak to peak. So the wavelength of this one is longer as opposed to high energy one. High energy one has a shorter wavelength. So high energy has high frequency and also a short wavelength. F is the symbol that we represent a frequency, and it has a short wavelength. Okay, and what kind of a wave will have a high frequency? Well, look at the spectrum over here. The violet one has a higher frequency as opposed to the red one. So the blue or violet has a higher frequency than the red one. Okay, we don't have time to finish this topic. We're going to continue this discussion next time. In the meantime, you can start to work on the homework. There's some video that I posted. It's very interesting. I recommend that you see one of the video called the eye. Okay, this video actually tell you how the eye is be able to see things, and there's like a sensor system inside of our eye. There's a so-called the cones. It's called the rods. So it will give you an idea of what the function of the eye. Okay. All right. If you don't have any question, if you do, then send me an email or you can come to my office hour. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Wish you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.